Welcome to episode 11.
Few months later, but we're here.
Well, it's not going to seem like that in our podcast because it's taken no breaks, but yes, 3 months ago was the last time we recorded our last episode. And we realized we're getting very near to the release of our last recorded episode. So we're like, okay, it's time. It's time to record this episode.
And the kids are at a friend's house. So, all four of them. So, there's some quietness in the air
And we're in a new home, but we'll talk about that some other time.
in a different podcast.
Yeah. So this episode 11 is part of this 12-part series that started with our travels around the world that we started in 2024. And episode 11 is all about Liam's life, his birth, his life, and down to his last breath.
It was pretty amazing. This is a pretty. I'm going to speak for myself, but I will find this one challenging because to really fit his life into an hour or two segment here, it's like a surreal moment, something like you would experience on TV or something like that.
I mean, I think this is one of the reasons we've also put off this podcast for 3 months.
Maybe that's like a.
I know I wasn't, even when I was recording, I wasn't ready. I still don't feel ready, but here we are.
Well, it's not forced then.
I mean, I don't feel like it's forced. It's hard to talk about him without wanting to cry. So
We got an episode. This episode we recorded it about 3 months ago, but our daughter kept coming in, and so the recording was a little bit cut up. So that's why we just decided to start over.
Yeah,
From
she
scratch.
came in a lot, and I don't mind a little interruption, but it was too much. So I was like, let's just scratch that episode and let's re-record it. And it took us 2 months. So yeah, let's start with Liam. So Liam was conceived on his oldest brother's birthday. We're in New York City. And I remember it so vividly because the next day after his birthday, he blew his candle off and all of that. He later told us that his wish for his birthday was to have a baby brother. And like 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. I just found that very funny because I was like, dude, your birthday wish came true. And he was like, what? But I had been tracking my ovulation and all that good stuff. And I was like 98% sure that I was ovulating that day. But we were in my mom's house, New York City, not where we lived, and we forgot to bring protection, which is condoms for us. And the kids were away that night, so parents had the night by themselves, and I was like, cool, we're having some fun. And I meant to tell Alex something, and I was like, nah, he knows the drill, which according to him, he pulled out. But I think
I'm pretty effective.
the story says otherwise. So yeah, since I was tracking everything, about 10 days later, I was like, where's my period? And it didn't come, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant. And I waited till we had just driven up to New York to visit my parents. We drove back down to Virginia, where at the time we were living in an RV. We went back to our RV, and I took a test as soon as I got home, and the two pink lines like came up right away. It was about like 10 days to 2 weeks after the deed. I already had a positive pregnancy test. So yeah, that kind of led us to conversations of whether we wanted to continue the RV life or not, because we had talked about that. Because right before Liam, I had a miscarriage about 2 months before that. So we had already, when I got pregnant that time, I was about 8 weeks pregnant when the miscarriage happened. We were already considering like potentially either going to another country or getting rid of the RV. Because it was hard if we wanted to get help to like have someone actually help us in the RV. I was like, it's just not a space for that. And as far as space, like obviously babies don't take up much space, but I was like, eventually, like we're gonna need a bigger place. So we kind of entered that conversation at the time. So then now, when I was pregnant with Liam, this conversation came up again of like, hey, are we going to keep RVing, or are we going to look into potentially going to a different country? And
Well, if you
yeah,
remember, we had the couple's trip to Dominican Republic.
that's right, in December. So like I was about 7 or 8 weeks pregnant for that trip.
So we went to that trip. I knew
Yeah,
that you were pregnant.
yeah,
We had talked already.
yeah. I was like 7 weeks when we went
And
to that trip.
and when we went to DR, it was a beautiful trip. It was amazing, so refreshing. I think that kind of solidified we were already leaning towards moving to DR.
Yeah, and being on that trip, we really loved it, and we were like, okay, maybe we do this.
Let's give it a try.
Yeah. So we kind of went after we came back from that trip, we went into the mindset that we were going to move. So we were going to wrap up our RV journey, and we were going to start selling all our stuff. And the plan was to eventually sell it and head over to Dominican Republic. Um, I'll talk about some other things. I'm kind of going to go back and forth here a little bit, just try to keep the stories aligned. But there's some things in the beginning of my pregnancy I'll talk about later and tie it all in. But essentially, we wrapped up. The reason we were in Virginia is because we had a restaurant that we were in the process of selling and getting rid of and getting out of our contract and all this stuff, which we did. So once we closed that up, we decided to head down south slowly towards Florida because that's the shortest flight from Miami to Dominican Republic. And we also still wanted to keep like doing the RV thing. So we're like, we'll slowly shimmy our way down in Florida, and then from there we'll like head out.
Now, Florida had a lot of RV spots, and we had a warranty on our RV, so that's where we got a lot of the work done for our RV because
Everything was breaking, like
everything was breaking, and we were trying to sell it, and we knew that if we wanted to sell it, we had to fix it all in
yeah,
order for us to walk away.
yeah,
So we went down to Florida to do all of that, and we stayed there for about a month, roughly.
maybe longer. I think we were in Florida a little bit longer than a month. I think we were there, yeah, a little over a month. But anyway, we were in Florida was really fun for the kids and for us. Like, the weather was nice. We could be outdoors a ton. This was in April, maybe March, April that we headed out. So it was still cooler up north. So when we went down to Florida, it was nice to be like in the warmer weather. And we told the kids that we would take them to like the Disney World and all of that. And we were kind of just sitting around. We bounced around a few campgrounds and stuff, and there was really nothing else for us to do. We felt like we were just sitting waiting for the RV to be sold. And I told Alex, like, hey, we have to make a decision because like nothing's budging on the sale of the RV, and we were still waiting months on parts. Like they were like, we have no idea if these parts are going to get here next week or in the next 6 months. And I was like, well, I'm going to give birth, so I don't want to be here the next 6 months. So I told Alex, like, the latest I'm willing to travel is like around 7 months because I don't want to be having to settle in and travel 8, 9 months pregnant. Like, it's ridiculous. I did it before, and I was like, I don't want to do it again. It's obviously very exhausting. So I was like, if we're moving, like, I would like to do it before I'm like 6 months pregnant. So like, I would like to leave. So it came down to this moment of like, we just have to pull the trigger. And if we're going to do this move, like, we just have to buckle down and say, we're doing it and buy the flights and we do it. So literally from like a couple of conversations, we went from 1 week of like, oh, we're staying here in Florida to like the next week of like, okay, we have dates, we have flights,
Yeah.
we're leaving. And the kids got really excited. So then for us, it was just logistics of how are we shipping all our stuff out there? What are we using? All this stuff. And uh, the trip to Disney that we thought was going to be like in 3 weeks happened in like the next 2 weeks. And we spent 4 days going to all the different parks. We thought we could do 5 days straight. And we ended up taking a break in the middle of the week because we were exhausted from the walking and the heat. And even the kids, like everybody was tired, but we had lots of fun. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and we're
That's a
glad.
different type of fitness level too. I thoroughly respect any family that goes for like a week straight
To Disney.
to Disney.
Yeah,
That's a different type of fitness level. And
yeah,
we've done some challenging things
yeah.
as a family, I think. And I can still say that Disney was something else.
It was like almost, you could almost say it's like too much fun. Like, like my kids are like, how can you have too much of something if it's good for you? And I was like, you could actually like kill yourself drinking too much water. I was like, granted, no one could probably drink that much water, but I was like, even water. And this was very much that. It was just too much fun.
Yeah.
It was exhausting. But we enjoyed it and we were like, yeah, we're not doing that again.
So
But it was fun.
yeah, so Florida was about closing things up because I needed to close up some things with my Veterans Affairs stuff
Yeah.
and getting seen by the doctors. And once Giselle just mentioned about like we just took the leap of faith, and then the universe conspires to help you make it,
Yeah.
happen. So we bought the tickets, and we're like we're leaving this date, and everything started to just go in our favor and how things played out. So
Yeah, we didn't even have a place yet. We originally were just like, we'll stay in Santiago near my family. So we ended up booking an Airbnb for a month there because that was the only place where like I knew people. And I was like, and we could figure out how to get a vehicle and all of that. And then from there, like, we'll move on because we knew we didn't want to stay in Santiago. Santiago is a city. There's no water near it, or like there's rivers, but no ocean. We're ocean people. So we're like, we need to be near the ocean. So we knew that we wouldn't be staying there permanently, but we did spend a month there.
a unique fact about Giselle and I and our family is that we have lived near a beach or water,
Ocean.
on ocean, our whole time together.
Yeah, I think we've never been further than 20 or 30 minutes our entire relationship. I think mostly because Alex has been in the Navy, but even after he got out of the Navy, like we were just always near the ocean.
Yeah.
It didn't like click to us until one day we sat down. We're like, oh, we've always lived near the ocean. Like that's always been a thing for us.
That's a non-negotiable
Yeah,
for us.
and we love it. So now we like look for it on purpose. We're like, okay, we
We're
gotta.
intentional about it.
Yes, I was like, we need to be near the ocean.
So we got to DR, closed up. I say closed up some loops. We started to prep the ground. We knew that this time. So for those, I'll let Giselle dive into it a little bit more. But Giselle is all free birthed 4 of our 5 children, and we knew that she was going to be staying in bed for 40 days this time. So we were looking for a nanny. We were getting the house. We were looking for a house, which we got into one contract. Unfortunately, things fell out like they just played out how they were supposed to. We got out of that contract and we found a place between Puerto Plata and Encuentro, where we live now and where our kids love to be. Puerto Plata is where the Veterans Clinic I mentioned a few episodes ago was where we were seen. So just it was 30 minutes each way, and we were able to get 2 nannies.
Yeah, so that was like our biggest, which we've said this before. Our biggest reason for wanting to move is like having 5 kids. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, and I did not feel like Alex should be responsible for like picking up all the slack while I have a new baby. So a big reason of coming here to Dominican Republic is because it's so affordable to have household help. And it's not that we're underpaying the people, it's just that is what people get paid here for to do that job. Like legally, that is what people get paid here. It's for us nothing. Like
Yeah.
compared,
And we are overpaying them too.
yes, like we always paid above what they considered the bare minimum wage here. So, and I say this because some people are like, "Oh, you're just taking advantage of another country." It's like, no, you're not taking advantage if somebody gets paid $1 for an hour of work and you pay them $1 or you pay them more. Like that's not taking advantage.
Like that's how
It's just what the system is set up to be, and that's not our job to change it.
that's
But
the
anyhow,
economy.
yeah. Anyhow, that's why we came here because we knew that it was going to be very inexpensive for us to have household help. And the thought was have someone to clean, cook, be able to watch the kids if we had to run out, do any errands, things like that. So that's what we did. We got here, we landed. Like I said, we spent a month in Santiago. After the month, we got our car there and we're like, all right, we're ready to go. And we headed towards Puerto Plata. We found a place in Sosua, but outside of the city. It was like he said in the middle of Encuentro and Puerto Plata. And within a month, I had hired the first household help person, employee, and then the next month we hired a second woman. And what?
I'm just thinking, do you think that we're repeating ourselves from other episodes?
Well, this I'm explaining Liam's life. We might be a bit, but I mean, most of the episodes were about our travels.
Okay.
But yeah, so everything was going smoothly, and leading up to Liam's birth, we were just the kids were in camps all summer, surfing, being at the beach almost every day. The girls did a couple of different camps, some in Puerto Plata, some in Encuentro. And it was a very busy summer in that sense. We were just constantly driving the kids around. They're like wanting to be at the beach. I'm getting bigger and more exhausted. And I'm just like, I don't know if I want to keep being part of all this driving and running around. Um, and yeah, I had no idea when I would give birth. Like I didn't feel like there was any signs leading up to it. Obviously, I knew I was close. Like it was within 2, 3 days of what we thought his due date would be. But when the day came, was very quick, straight to the point. Alex and I had a disagreement slash argument that night prior, and I think around three in the morning for the whole night.
4:30.
Some at some time like early morning, I left, and I don't even know what we were
No,
disagreeing
you
about.
you left the night before and slept
Okay,
downstairs. I came at like 4:30, 5 o'clock to
okay.
come.
No, you came later, but yeah. Anyways, Alex, I slept downstairs because we had moved some of the kids' beds upstairs. I came downstairs and I slept in one of the rooms in the first floor of the apartment. And Alex came at some point in the morning, and when he came, I already had been having surges. I was like, I'm not going to tell him till like, I know this is like something's actually happening because sometimes it could be hours and hours. So when he came down, he's like, "What's up?" And I was like, "Well, I've been having surgeries." I said, "I'm pretty sure the baby's gonna be born today." And he's like, "Why didn't you come get me?" And I was like, "Well, because there was no need to." I was like, "The baby's not coming like in the next minute." And we had talked about giving birth upstairs because that's where our bed was, and he had the cold tub, which wasn't cold at the time. It had water, but it wasn't cold. And he was like, "Oh, you can get in the tub, this, that." But when I was in this moment, I was just like, "No, I don't want to go upstairs." And he kept pushing, like, "But let's go upstairs. This is what we planned. This is," and I was just like, "No, I don't want to go upstairs." I was like, "I want to stay here." And mostly it was all the kids were asleep upstairs. And I was like, if I head upstairs and I start making noise and stuff, they're all going to wake up, which is not a big deal. But I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be here for an hour or I'm going to be here for 12 hours. So I was like, I don't want to go upstairs right now. Like, I don't want to wake them up a minute into this, you know? And I told him if this baby isn't born before the ladies who clean come, I said, tell them they're not coming to work. I was like, I don't want them here. And he's like, don't you think they could help with the kids? I was like, absolutely not. They are not allowed inside this apartment if I am still like in the middle of labor. So it's like, if you have to text them at 7, whatever, I was like, text them and let them know, like, not to come into work. Like, they can have the day off. I will pay them. I don't care. Just, they're not allowed. Um, but yeah, funny enough, I gave birth before they even came to work. So they got to work their full day.
7:30 in the
Yeah.
morning, Liam was born, and I I remember I'm really excited about that one because about Liam because I was able to be fully present. I was able to set up some cameras. I got the boys involved. For those that have followed our journey with the other free births, it's not always been like that. Especially at the beginning, very anxious, and this time I was full blown ready to go. I've had experience. I knew what to expect, and obviously, there's things that I look back now and I'm like, man, I wish I would have done differently, just because I was really recording everything. But now knowing that Liam is not with us anymore, it's like, man, I'm glad I got those videos and I got all of that because this happened. So it's it's it was the first time that I got to fully experience all of it. And even like as we talk about his life and we progress from here, I got to fully experience all of his life compared to when I was working in the Navy and I wasn't there for my other kids like I was for Liam. And Liam, he came out just looked like nothing, just like a perfect little baby. He was crying a little bit, and the kids were wanting to hold him. They all took turns holding him, let him all hold him. and she was looking at him crazy because she's
No,
like,
she didn't touch him until he was like 3 or 4 days old.
yeah. She looked at him and
She like poked him. I remember she was like poking him.
who is
Like,
this? Who is this?
what is this creature?
But Grayson made an instant connection, and
Well, Grayson was the first one to fully hold him after he was born because after the placenta, I birthed the placenta. So the whole birth was under like 90 minutes. Technically, like when it got really hard to him being born, it was like 90 minutes or less. He was born at 7:30 in the morning. Um, he was coming out like I felt like it was like a train trying to run through me. I actually remember having to breathe him up and in because I felt like he was going to tear me open. I do remember that, and it was very powerful. So we did it in what used to be our old bedroom that we turned into an office, but it wasn't full yet. So it only had like a desk, and it was very empty. And I think that's why I like that space, because I had a lot of space to move around. So we just laid a yoga mat, got a bunch of towels. I had an exercise ball, and like I said, the desk, and I just used those as anchors and to move around, and did what felt good for me. And yeah, after he was born and the placenta was born, Grayson Grayson was like begging. He was like, "Get out of them, get out of them." I was like, "Sure." So I passed up to Grayson first, and I went to shower off, and then I came back. So Grayson was like one of the first ones before Alex to hold Liam. And then later on, we like discovered that Liam and Grayson had created this bond. He like imprinted on this kid, and Liam would actually stop crying with Grayson before he would with Alex. So like I would pass him to Alex, and he would keep crying, and the moment Grayson held him, he would stop crying. And I found it hilarious. It lasted probably like 2 months before.
2 months.
It was like 2 months before Liam was like, "Okay," with Alex, like, "I'll stop crying with you."
I mean, Grayson. I used the word fight, but Grayson was like, I want to hold him, and
Yeah,
any time that Giselle wasn't holding him,
it was Grayson.
Grayson was holding him,
Yeah.
and
I mean, he would come into the room constantly and was like, "Can I hold him? Can I hold him? Can I hold him?"
yeah.
And I was like, as long as he's not sleeping and we're not like picking him up to wake him up, I'm like, you can hold him. So he held him a lot. He definitely put in his time to form that connection with him.
First like week or two was was great. From what I remember, like he wasn't waking up and fussing, and
I
then
mean, the first month, usually babies just sleep a lot. Most. I'm not gonna say all because I had Grayson did not sleep the first month,
but then as time,
yeah, well, I mean, it's normal. They go through different sleep cycles and they're changing and they're growing and their sleep cycles change and all of that. But yeah, the first month was pretty much uneventful, just doing baby things. Then around that 2 month mark, he seemed to be very gassy. So I took him in to see someone to see like if something was going on. And he just like explained to me that sometimes they just get really gassy, showed me where to massage him. That seemed to help. Um, but other than that, like I can't say that there was any immediate red flags for myself or anything that I was concerned about with Liam. He fed well from day one. Like I never had any issues with breastfeeding or anything like that. He was having normal bowel movements. Like everything was pretty normal to me, as far as I could see. Now,
no, I just I just remember, like I was telling you, just being there the whole time. It's been different for me. So like that's the thing that I've really leaned into is like through this period of loss is the memories that I have with Liam because I mean I have memories with the boys and the girls, but with him we were there all the time. So I started an organization with a friend, Frequency of Fatherhood, and that got overwhelming, got a lot. We had a big project out, and Giselle and I had a conversation. She had said, "Hey, I don't feel supported the way that I envisioned, and being busy. You've been very busy, and
well, because like everything was launching and taking off right around the time he was born. So, like 2 months into it, they're getting even busier. They're having more projects and more things. And I said, hey, like what we agreed was that at least for the first year, the focus would be on my postpartum and the baby, not on starting new projects, new companies, like new ventures, because that takes time, that takes effort. And like we still had four other kids at home. And while, yes, we had the household help, they're at the end of the day, like they're not their parents. And the way they raise kids here is very different, and we homeschool. So basically, like, their learning is from us and from our exposure and what we teach them throughout the day. So I really felt like there was a big drawback as far as like for the kids to just leave them with the household help all the time.
Yeah.
And it's life goes in phases. Like, I understand, like, after a baby, that's a big transition. It's a big change. Like, it's not the end of the world if they go 3, 4 months without our full 100% attention. But I was just like, hey, if you can, give them a little direction here and there, like, it's much appreciated, because the way our household help was just like, if they're fed and they're not bleeding, then they're fine. And
Yeah.
that's it,
And one of the reasons we came to DR, we talked about it in previous episodes, was to come closer together as a family, being able to be together more. And also, as we talked about, with the assistance of household help, doing things that me and Jasil would be tied up doing, so we could focus more on each other and the kids. So, like, when I sat with everything that Jasil said, and it started to make sense that I was repeating a cycle in the past of just like, hey, going back into work, and that's what I do. So after Liam was born, and 4 or 5 months go by, and she talks about this, I really, I felt it too, but it was more of me trying to just get these things out. So I sat with it, and realized that I needed to, for me to be able to be fully present, I had to walk away from that. And that's, so I walk away from Frequency of Fatherhood in March timeframe. And that, about this same time, we get a message from our landlord that he's not.
Well, at first he asked if we wanted to stay in the apartment. And we said, yeah, sure. Our plan was to, at that point, was to go travel the island and let my sister, who wanted to come live with us, live in the apartment. And he said that that was fine. He's like, oh, it's your apartment. Do whatever you want with it. Like, I'm cool with that. And we were like, okay, great. And then, like, a week later, he messages us again and he says, no, I'm not renewing the lease. And we were just like, okay. So then that's when we started considering having to move and do it, which we talked about this in another podcast. And then that's when we started, like, reconsidering what we were going to do.
Yeah.
But as far as Liam, there wasn't anything, I would say, the first 8, 9, 10 months that I ever was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? This, that, things like that. There was like one time that there was a couple of times where he got sick and he had like he was really stuffy and very congested, which typically, like, I felt like hadn't happened that soon for some of my younger kids. So I found that interesting, but I was like, oh, it happens. Like, we're turning on the AC. They were doing like construction in the apartment at one point, like all this stuff. Like, there's a lot of dust and shit in the air. And I was just like, all of that can affect, a brand new baby. But he would get over it. Like, it wasn't like he was like sick with fevers or anything like that. So, like, other than that I feel was like normal stuff that happens to kids, like, his body fought it off well, and then he was fine. And I was just like, cool. And there was like one time he threw up in the car and threw up some bile. It was yellow. And my friend's like, oh, that happens. None of my other kids had ever done that. That was the first for me as a mom, even with 5 kids. And they're like, yeah, like, sometimes it just happens when they don't have a lot in their stomach. And I looked it up and it was like, yeah, it's not a big deal. And he seemed like he was fine afterwards. So I was like, okay. And yeah, I wasn't worried about any of that, because once again, he seemed like he recovered and he was okay. So then comes time to travel, time to move. And honestly, I was very excited for it, because by then Liam was like 8 to 10 months, something like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like 10 months, 10 months. And that age for me is like really fun. I love that first like 18 months. I think it's so easy to take babies anywhere, like kids, because you could just put them in a carrier. They're not complaining. Like, they haven't made up their mind of what they want yet. So they're like, as long as I'm with mom, I'm good. Like, once they start getting to like 2.5, 3 years old, they're like, you're not telling me what to do. I'm going to go walk and you're not holding me. And I feel like that's like the difficult stage to travel with them. But I feel like when they're under 2, it's so easy, because they usually just want to be close to mom. And for my kids, I breastfed them all, and like a boob keeps them usually content and quiet anywhere we go. So I was very excited for our travels with Liam, even though he was little. Like some people freak out about that. And I'm like, it's the best time to travel when they don't walk and they're not like toddlers, you know?
Yeah.
So
And I think that's why we thrived with the traveling is just because like we were saying this the other day. Liam, in his whole life probably sat in a car seat once or twice.
yeah, in Dominican Republic we never used a car seat. He literally sat in a car seat like once or twice for like 5 minutes, if that.
So the traveling for us traveling, we didn't have car seats, we didn't have extra like
Yeah.
we had the normal we had
Which I
normal
know for
suitcases.
Americans and other civilized people who listen to this, they're probably appalled right now, but it's honestly very common once you leave the USA that car seats are just not really this thing.
Well, and the thing is
It's
this,
right.
the thing is also like you most of the time you sat in the back and
Yeah.
you had them on you like
He was in a carrier with
close
me.
tight, you're in a
Yeah.
seatbelt, like or whatever the case may be. I wouldn't say always in a seatbelt.
No, no. But it's not that. It's just okay. For me, like also the whole aspect of safety is. I'm not saying that some things aren't unsafe. Like yes, they can be, but it's like what are the chances of them happening? So I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So where I was going with that point is that like the traveling was not as hard as like
Yeah.
what people think because we
We
didn't
didn't
have
have a
extra
stroller.
stuff.
We didn't have a car seat. We literally traveled with his buckle carrier, and that was it. Like as far as like his necessities, obviously he has clothes and all of this stuff, but it was like buckle carrier. That's
And
it.
Liam was a bubbly. He wasn't like always in your face type kid, but he was a bubbly kid. Like
Yeah,
he was never crying and he wasn't complaining if he was being held and being played with. And
he wasn't really a fussy kid. He was pretty happy child. Like once he got to that age, he was constantly. I mean, he was always with us, and somebody always wanted to hold him. So it wasn't like he was crying and on the floor often. Like one of his siblings always wanted to play with him. And we were also traveling with my sister, so we had another adult. She also held him a bunch and helped us with him. So it was a group effort. But yeah, during the travels, I felt like everything was going fine. I think that that's when we started to realize a little bit about his skin discoloration, which later we find out it was his low oxygen levels. That in really cold temperatures, his feet would slightly turn purple or blue. But at the time, like it was so mild that I was like, oh, he's just really cold. And he was skinny because he wasn't eating much solids. And we also didn't notice like over time, he like started initiating and eating solids like normal kids do. But at some point, there was a decline where he started refusing all solids. But it was so slow and subtle that I wasn't able to connect those dots till after we knew everything that was going on with him. And then I started going back on videos and pictures and seeing that he did start rejecting solids and that he did stop, doing those things. But at the time, because he wasn't eating much solids, I just figured, oh, he's just not very fat. And, we just have to keep him warm. So we just made sure that he always had socks and shoes and
well, I
he
mean,
was warm.
looking at pictures too, like the last month we could see that he was skinning out, like he was
Yes,
thinning
yeah,
out.
but
So
that
he
was
was
like
like
that, but that
chubby.
was later. I'm talking about the beginning of the travels. Like I'm not talking about later on.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of the travels, that was like one thing that I did notice was like, hey, we have to keep Liam warm. That was like one of the first things I noticed. I also thought I swore that he would walk by July, like before his first birthday, because he was already crawling, he was pulling himself up, everything. And July came by, and I remember we were in Peniche, and I was like, okay, Liam's gonna walk in this house because we had it for a month. And Liam did not walk. And I was just like, oh, okay, like every kid's different. And then his birthday came along and, the next month and the next month. And I remember that I even like set a date. I was like, okay, Liam, like if you don't walk by 15 months, you're going to start to really worry me. Like if you don't walk by December, like I'm going to start getting slightly worried about this. And then funny enough, when we went to Portugal, the family there of 7 kids, the mom tells me, yeah, my son didn't walk or talk till he was 3. And now he's a fully grown, normal adult. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with him. And I remember that I was like, all right, Liam, I'll give you to 18 months because she made that comment to me. I was like, okay, maybe I'm like pushing this too much. Maybe it's me because everything else was normal. Like he's talking, he's communicating, he's saying mama, he's saying dada. He can point to things like you could see if he was upset or he wanted something, like everything else was tracking. So I was like, I don't want to compare him to all these other kids, all my other kids everybody's different. So I was like, okay, Liam, you have till 18 months. Like, if you don't walk till 18 months, like, I'm gonna, we're gonna have to check it out. Like, why is it that you're not walking? Like, what's going on? Um, I don't know if you want to
Well,
add
I mean,
anything.
even we talked about the not eating a lot.
Yeah, and so that was more, I would say that that wasn't really on my radar till fall time as well. Like the summer went by, he was kind of taking taste of things here and there. But once fall came by, and now that we're back in cold weather, and I'm starting to notice that his skin is changing colors more often and things like that's starting to concern me. And I was like, okay, you need to eat. Like, you need to put some body fat on you. Like, we need to figure this out on, like, why do you get cold so fast? Um, and like, why is this happening? And by then, I remember I had told Alex, I was like, hey, like, I am starting to slightly worry why he doesn't want to swallow. Like, but he drinks breast milk just fine, but he won't swallow much foods. And people are like, oh, you have to blend it. Give him soft foods. I tried it all. I gave him yogurts. I blended food. I try to give him smoothies. I try to give him mashed bananas, mashed avocado, potatoes. This He did not want to eat any of it. Like, he would reject it. And I've never been one to like shove food in my kids' mouths. Like, I present it to them, I put it to them. They've all, put food in their mouth and eat it. So I was also being very considerate of like, okay, there's something about this child that's different. There's something that he doesn't like about this. And I wasn't pushing it on him, but I was definitely giving him the opportunities to want to eat, to want to try new things.
Yeah, so the travels were amazing in the sense of like we were experiencing different aspects. We we were taking Liam with us. He was enjoying it as well. Like I personally believe that the Morocco, the Sahara Desert was like the highlight of the trip. We growing up for Liam, growing up on a beach. I mean, he's been exposed to sand, but him being there, he just enjoyed it. He thoroughly
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and was no crying, and he fell asleep to the drum beats under the stars. So he lived a beautiful life, and I think that's the most important. Like when I look back, like he got to experience so many different things that people in 80 years of living don't get to experience, and he did it in 18 months. And I personally believe that he coordinated that. He knew the type he called us into his life. We called him into our life, and he said, I'm coming in for a short time, but I'm gonna live to the fullest experience that I possibly can. And I'm speaking after the fact, but like that's the thing that we're both holding on to, is that we had no knowing that he was sick.
No.
Like no knowing that what he was going through with the amount of uh, internal structural issues with his heart and how things were set up. Like we didn't know any of that.
Like, we'll get into it, but basically, if you look up the research, you ask a doctor, kids with his conditions don't live past a couple of weeks without surgery. They're lucky if they get past a month or two, even if they get treated. And even when there is treatment, he had so many complications, like he shouldn't have made it to 6 months.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a kid who was never touched by a doctor, never seen, never treated for anything, made it to 18 months and seemingly under the radar. Like, were there signs? Yes. But in the moment, when you don't even know that there's anything going on, is like you're not even paying attention to the subtle signs. And I know that people are going to judge us for this, and people are going to have their own thought processes and all of this, but one thing that gives me a little solace, I guess, and like, okay, I'm not crazy, is that we were not alone, and we were not like, we were never completely away from other people. Like, so many people hung out with Liam, so many people took care of Liam, so many people held Liam. It was never like, oh, well, no one ever saw the kid. And it just was so noticeable. They just are stupid not to notice. No one ever told us that they thought anything was ever wrong with him. Like, ever. Like, I never had a single person come up to me and say, we think something's medically wrong with your kid. Or, hey, like, this is a red flag or whatever. Like, as far as we knew, the kid was normal. And as far as what we know, like, nobody ever came up to us and told us otherwise. And I mean, we were around medical professionals, we were around different types of people, mothers, fathers, everything, and no one ever said anything. So I think that that was part of his sole purpose, was to fly under the radar in this sense, to be able to live the life he did, because he never had to go to a hospital till, his final 48 hours. Like, he was never under that type of pressure and stress in his life. He literally lived a beautiful life. I can't even, like, Liam barely cried because there's so many of us. Like, he had no reason to cry. Like, if Liam, the moment Liam goes, somebody was like, I'm gonna go, like, it wasn't like he was the baby, like, oh, you're just gonna have to wait a minute because I'm doing something and I just can't get to you right now. Like, there was always someone who could get to Liam.
He's also like he's very lovable. Like he's a lovable kid. Like, and I know all kids are lovable. What I'm saying is, when we held him and we played with him, he'd smack at your face or like he'd do these little things.
He was always playful. Like, he was always playful, interactive, and loving with whoever held him.
So it's like a different type of love that we all got to experience. And I think that he lays the foundation. He laid the foundation for how we operate as a family moving forward. Because that's one of the things, as we talked in other podcast episodes, is we created these family values. We started to come together closer because of this. We've allowed this to bring us closer and not separate us. And we're not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's easy, but like we do all have our days. There's days that she's going through it. There's days that I'm going through it. There's days that Kaden and Grayson are going through it. There's days that Lumi is going through it. So it's like,
And even Linabelle.
and Linnevel. And so like he gave us, we gave him love and he gave us love. And, going into Cyprus, it just, now that I can sit with it, it just felt different. I didn't know that these were the final days, but we had started to we slowed down because we were fast traveling for a month in Morocco. In Cyprus, we chose to slow down and take it easy. And we went and saw, these places, little by little places. And we went on walks and hikes, long hikes and long walks with Liam. I started walking with him. So like we started spending time together. And
Alex's alarm is going, so I'm on. But yeah, those final days in Cyprus, I remember 2 weeks before everything happened, I was talking to my therapist. We did Zoom calls, and I tell him, I his not eating is really, really starting to worry me now. And I said, the moment we get to Turkey, I'm gonna get him checked out by a doctor. And we were supposed to arrive to Turkey February 19th. And I didn't do it in Cyprus, one because I was like, if he needs follow-ups, care, whatever, like, I don't want to have to, now we're leaving in 2 weeks and we can't get him what he needs. So I was like, I'll just wait till we get to Turkey. And I wasn't like alarmed by anything because I was like, he's still breastfeeding. So I was like, as soon as we get to Turkey, this is what we're going to do. And yeah, that moment never came. That moment never came because he passed away on February 19th, the same day we were supposed to fly to Turkey. But I think about that all the time, right? Like, what would have happened had we arrived to Turkey? Had we been able to do all this? Like, at the end of the day, based on his situation, he wasn't going to be alive for even a year more. Like, we were lucky if we got another 3 months or 6 months with Liam, because his condition was worsening. His condition, he was on a decline. And like, it's hard to have seen it in the moment. But when I looked back after knowing everything I knew the last 30 days in Cyprus, he became very clingy. He was crying more often than not. And I mean, and I don't mean like he he wasn't crying constantly, but he was fussy. Like, if he wasn't on me or touching me or in a carrier, he was fussing, which wasn't his norm. Typically, if he was on the floor, he was happy. Well, in Cyprus, he did not want to be on the floor. He did not want to be alone. Like, he wanted to be on somebody. And I, once again, in the moment of it, I wasn't paying attention to this. I'm just thinking, oh, he might be getting new teeth soon. He's going through a phase. Maybe he's not sleeping. Like, who knows? Like babies just go through all these little things. And I don't necessarily sit there and try to dissect it. I meet the children with their needs where they are. And that's what I did. When he was getting this way, I just met him where he was. I was like, okay, he wants me to hold him more. He wants to be the carrier more. So we were just taking turns. Hey, I have to shower. Can you hold Liam? Hey, I got to do this. Can one of the kids? And we all were, in a sense, on Liam duty. It's like, who's going to hold Liam while one of us does something? And I didn't think anything of it, honestly, other than he just needs constant love and affection in this phase of his life. But after everything, it was obvious to me that he felt himself already slowly fading away. Like he was already slowly fading away, and he knew that. And he had to find a way to connect with us here on Earth again. Yeah, I mean, we know that he knew now that we know all we know and the way everything happened.
And she sometimes said that and then some days are good. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's not easy, or it's not hard, excuse me. I think the most important thing is just staying with the emotions at the moment and thinking about the gifts that he gave us. Because at the end of the day, we talk as we go through the whole scenario, the situation, he wasn't supposed to be here longer than a week or two. And so, like, it's the gift, like these memories, and being able to just talk about them right now. That's just, thankful. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the way everything went down too, it was just so. It's almost like you're watching a movie and you just can't believe it, and you're like, "What's going on?" So the way this all started was, this is February 16. No, February 17, Monday. It was February 17 on Monday. We were starting to clean up the Airbnb because on Tuesday, the 18th, we were going to leave to a different part of the island on Cyprus to get closer to the airport that we were going to fly into Turkey. So Monday, we have the suitcases out, we're packing, whatnot. And for a few months now, one of Liam's favorite things was to ride on the bars of the suitcase. Like he would sit, straddle the handles, and the kids would push him around. And typically, like, I had no issues with that. And that morning, Kaden asked me, like, hey, can I drive Liam like that? And my initial response was going to be no, because the suitcase was empty. And I know that throws, the balance off because there's no weight inside. But I don't like to fear my kids or tell them things so they doubt themselves. So what I said was, Caden's a capable, responsible kid. Like, he's not going to hurt his brother. Like, he knows to be gentle and, to go slow with him. So I said, sure. And I was sitting in the living room, and I remember I saw him passing by through, we had big windows out to the balcony, and I see him passing with Liam in the suitcase, rounding the corner of the house. And I had something in me, like, say, tell him to stop. And I said, no, just trust him. Like, he's going to be okay. And as he rounds the corner, about 30 seconds later, I hear the suitcase fall, and I hear Liam crying. And it was right at the front door. So I just waited for him to open the front door that leads right into the living room. And he's like, Liam fell. He's like, he didn't hit himself other than his mouth. And he was crying a lot. And Caden got very upset with himself and like ran off and hid in a room, and nobody could like get near him or talk to him. And I said, buddy, like, you're not in trouble. Like, none of us are going to do anything. Like, we just want to know what happened. Like, it's okay. Like, act like your brother's okay. He just cut his mouth. Like, we didn't want him to feel guilty about what had just happened, because we have 5 kids. It happens. Like, they're not trying to kill each other. They're not trying to hurt each other. It's just accidents happen. So I get Liam, and he has a pretty big cut inside his lip, but other than that, he looks okay. And I was like, okay, cool. The mouth heals really fast. Like, he should be okay. And I realized that within like 20 minutes that the issue was that now he didn't want to breastfeed because of the cut in his mouth. He just like refused to breastfeed. And I tried to see if he would just like take other things. He didn't want anything. So I just put him in the carrier and he took a long nap and I let him sleep. And I kept cleaning. We were cleaning the apartment. I was picking everything up, packing up, whatever. So he spends most of the day in the carrier. He wakes up later and he's looking around and whatnot. He still doesn't want to feed. And I tell Alex, like, he's starting to worry me that he doesn't want to even take breast milk now. Like, I need him to eat something. But he seemed content other than that. Like, he wasn't screaming, he wasn't crying. So I was just like, okay, look, maybe, by nighttime for sure, for bedtime, like, he'll drink some milk, he'll drink something. And I had been giving him little sips of water from his sippy cup and stuff. And nighttime comes around, and we he had this moment where he wanted to play, and we put him on the floor, and he's playing with the kids, and he's playing with everybody. It was pretty late already. It was like 10:30, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna take him to bed before he gets upset. I don't want him to get upset and like start crying and his whole mouth and this. So I was like, I'm gonna take him to bed now, uh, before like he hits that point of like I'm exhausted, even though he had slept all day. And I take him to bed. And again, he doesn't want to breastfeed. And it was the first time like he had ever fallen asleep at night without breastfeeding. He just laid in my arm and fell asleep. And I was just like, okay. And I think about an hour or two later, he wakes up crying again. And at that point, I tell Alex, hey, you might as well go sleep in the boys' room because he's probably going to do this a few more times tonight. And I don't want you, both of us, to be exhausted tomorrow on travel day. I said, go sleep in the boys' room. I'll stay here with Liam. So one of us rests. And he said, okay. So he goes to the boys' room to sleep, and I stay there with Liam. He cried a little bit. He drank milk for like 15 seconds, falls back asleep, and he doesn't wake up again till 4:30. And now where he woke up at 4:30 in the morning, he went straight into this very angry crying. Like, so angry. I've never heard Liam crying like this before. And he had his hands balled up in like fists, and he's just screaming at the top of his lungs. I try to squeeze breast milk. I had to squeeze some into a bottle. I try to give him the bottle again. Like, he doesn't want, he's just screaming. He's smacking everything away from his mouth. And I try to stand up and walk around with him. I'm like walking outside in the balcony and walking inside the house. And then I just feel like his body starts going limp on me. And then he sounds like he's grunting. And he's just like, ah, ah. And that's when I started freaking out because I was like, okay, what's going on? And the lights were still off. It was night. So I turn on the bathroom light, and his eyes are closed. He's sweating, and his skin color doesn't look right. So I run to the room to get Alex. I'm like, hey, I just say, Alex, Alex, because I didn't want to wake up the boys. And he's like, what? I said, something's going on with Liam. I said, I don't know what. And he's like, what? So he comes, runs into the room with me, turns on the bedroom light. He's like, what's going on with him? I said, I don't know. I said, he just woke up. He was crying, and he was crying so hard. And now he starts grunting. And now he looks like this. And he looks like he's passing out, like he's fainting. So I said, I think we need to go to the hospital with him right now. And I I said, well, let me take a video real quick before we leave. And this is from just past experiences of what we dealt with Linabelle. Linabelle, had seizures for 2.5 years of her life and went misdiagnosed because doctors wouldn't fucking believe me. So I was like, let me just take a 5-second clip because next thing you know, we'll get to the hospital. He's fine. And they'll tell me that I'm crazy or making this up. So I took a 5-second clip and I was like, all right, that's enough. Let's go. And we put on our clothes. Everything was laid out for us from the night before. It was supposed to be travel day. And we had Aaliyah there who was traveling with us as our travel nanny. And Alex went in and told her, like, hey, we have to take Liam to the hospital real quick. Like, we don't know what's going on. And so we left. All the kids were still asleep. Like, they didn't even know we left the house. Um, I don't know if you want to add anything in at this point.
Not just like in the middle of the night when Giselle told me, hey, like it's gonna be a long night. Go ahead and sleep with the boys. I went into the boys' room and I just felt this anxious uncomfortable feeling. So like I started chat GPT and Googling what happened and things to be aware of and be, to try to help with. Because for me, like I'm just trying to get ahead of the game here of like, okay, he hasn't eaten in so many hours, and there's a point where we got to make a call of like
He has to eat.
he has to eat like because yeah, that's breast milk was his only source of protein and getting his his vitamins and things of that nature. So where I'm going with this is I looked it up and they were talking about dehydration in babies, and so I was like, tomorrow if he wakes up, that's most likely what we might have to do if he's not eating.
Which I had thought about that too. I was like, we probably have to head to a hospital if he doesn't eat just to get him fluids. Like if he still doesn't breastfeed, like he needs fluids.
So when Giselle came in and said that, and I saw him, I was like, "Oh, this is probably," because I looked it up at like 2 a.m. This is probably
What's happening?
what's happening is he's fainting from hunger. He's
Yeah.
dehydrated. He's hungry. He needs to eat. So I'm like, "Let's go." And that was really the main my what I thought going
Same.
to the hospital is
That means same.
we're gonna get him an IV.
Yeah.
We're gonna get him squared away, get him taken care of,
And that's what I thought
and
too.
then be on our way by because our flight was the next day. So we'll be ready to go, make
Yeah.
our flight to Nicosia, or from Nicosia to Turkey. And when we got to the hospital, they started to.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did their initial assessment and they kept asking me what other conditions he had. And I was confused. I'm like, he doesn't have anything else. And he's like, he doesn't have any other conditions. They just like kept, and I said, they're like, explain to me the story again. Like, what happened to him? And I explained the story like 5 times. I'm like, he was on a suitcase. He fell, split his lip. He hasn't breastfed since 10 a.m. yesterday. Like that's the only story there is to tell. Like, I don't know what else to tell you because they kept questioning me. And I was confused. And, they're speaking to me in English, but they're speaking Greek to each other. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, what they're saying to each other. They're not really explaining much to me. They called this other nurse from somewhere, these other doctors to come, and they're all like inspecting me and whatnot. And the arrived conclusion is that he needs an x-ray. And I was like, okay, sure. Like, I was like, I'm not going to say no. Like, go ahead, whatever you got to do. And they go and do the x-ray. And Alex is in the hallway. I was in a very small room. So Alex is like standing in the hallway and he just comes in and he's like, they're saying he has an enlarged heart. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what? Okay, he has an enlarged heart. Now what? Uh, but they haven't told us anything, and they just keep asking like, what's wrong? What's his condition? And then they just start telling us he's very critical. He's very critical. That was the only statement that they would say was,
They're not going to be able to see him here.
yeah,
They need to get more tests done, so they got an EKG. Because I've had EKGs myself, I get next to the computer and see what this computer spits out. I take a picture of it. I'm chat GPTing it, so there's I'm starting to put things together, realizing that like something's going on seriously with his heart, because of the EKG, and then I'm talking about his enlarged heart, and then they're all freaking. They're starting to get frantically.
yeah.
Like
They're like running around everywhere, making phone calls, like doing all this stuff, and we're just sitting there, kind of lost as to what is actually going on.
They were trying to get IVs. There was
Yeah.
blood everywhere. Like I say, blood everywhere. Not like shooting out, but like they were trying to get IVs, and
They poked his arms, his wrists, his feet, this, that. They have a red light. They turn off all the light. They couldn't find his veins. They're like, it's so hard. They're like, has anybody ever drawn blood from him? This, that. They're like making this all, they get literally like 4 or 5 different nurses and doctors to come try to draw blood from him. And they're saying that is extremely difficult. They finally get a nurse who can. And I finally tell her, like, hey, can you just leave some type of permanent thing there so you guys don't have to keep poking him? Because they would draw the blood and then they would say, oh, we need more. And then they would start the process again.
screaming this.
Yeah. And I'm like, can't we just leave something permanent in his arm and his wrist and his foot to where we're not continuously poking him 20 times to get one little vial of blood? And finally, they're like, yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to put it in. Ends up not freaking working anyway. Anyhow, so we're in this for all of this. They do tell us, hey, you're not going to be able to stay here after like 45 minutes. They're like, you're not going to be able to stay here. You're going to have to go to the other hospital in Nicosia. We were in Paphos at this time in Cyprus. They said, because this hospital is too small, it cannot accommodate what you need. You guys need a cardiologist. You got to go over there. The kids are still 30 minutes away in Paia at the Airbnb that we're supposed to be checking out of this morning. So Alex is like, do I have enough time to go get the kids, like to go get them some stuff, tell the kids what's happening, and come back before they head out in the ambulance? And they said yes. I was probably in that ER for a total of 2 hours before the ambulance took us to the next hospital. So Alex goes, makes the drive, comes back. I gave him a list of things that I needed for Liam. He goes, comes back, gives me all the things. And then I say, just don't wait. Just leave right now, because now he needs to go back, round up this thing, and then head to Nicosia with all the kids and Leah and check out of the Airbnb while I'm on the way to the hospital. And I was like, we'll stay in contact. So Liam finally breastfeeds probably like 20 to 30 minutes right before we go to the ambulance. Like, he breastfed for a long time. Like, he drained my boobs, like drank so much milk. So I'm thinking, oh, he's getting better. Like, he's finally feeding. Like, this is what we've been waiting for this whole time. Like, he's gonna be okay. Like, we're gonna get to the hospital. We're gonna figure out whatever it is, and like, we're gonna be on our merry way. Um, so they were very adamant on keeping his oxygen mask on. They don't tell me why. They just like, don't take it off of him. It has to stay on. And they're like, and I was like, okay. But they never say why. Like, okay, cool.
I think, one thing I want to say on this is we live with Liam for his life, the 18 months, and we know Liam's normal. And I'm not going to say he was normal, but
It was.
he was stabling
He was stabling
from
yeah.
what we knew.
Yeah.
And so going back and talking with the doctors and now seeing all of the statistics or the
basically they were freaking out. So baby's oxygen levels should be 95% to 100. When we were in the hospital in the ER, they were what, 55?
It's 55.
They were 55.
Anything
So,
below 90, the
yeah.
doctor says in a medical emergency.
Yes.
So when he came in at 55, which now the doctor was saying that the highest that he's probably ever
had
operated
was 75. Yeah.
So he's, he came in lower, but he's starting to get to his baseline that we know of.
Yeah.
So like that's the challenging part is
like for doctors, everything's in a box. So the moment that they saw this child is at 55, what they're thinking is he's this far from 95, not knowing that it's probably 65 or 75, what his norm has been his entire life.
Yeah.
So they're freaking out even more, while I'm like, but he's getting better. He's starting to do things he wasn't doing 5 hours ago. But to them, it's a dying child, which in a sense he was. Like, he was within his last probably few months of his life, even if there was like no intervention. But anyhow, so all of that happens. We get in the ambulance and they start having issues with the fucking IVs again. Now they have them. He has one in each arm and the inside of his elbows. I don't know what it's called. I'm not a nurse. Anyhow, they tell me that one came out, and they're like, we cannot lose the other IV. So they're like, whatever you do, he cannot move his arm. They're like, you need to hold his arm stiff the entire ride. They're like, because we will not be able to do this while we're driving. And it's an hour and a half to 2 hour drive. So I'm literally sitting in the ambulance holding his arm like this, ensuring that that IV does not come out of his arm. And Liam the whole time had these fingers gripped like that. Like, I'm like holding his wrist, and he's like, the entire time he falls asleep on my chest. And then my other hand, I have his oxygen mask clasped to his face because he hated it. He's like trying to rip it off his face and take it off. And I basically fought him until he stopped. Like, I just like shoved it on his face, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry, buddy. Like, this mask has to stay on your face. So his back is to my chest, and that's how we ride for 2 hours in the ambulance. Is him gripping my two fingers and me with the oxygen mask on his face. And he passes out, thankfully, and he literally doesn't move and doesn't make a sound the entire ambulance ride. And we get to the hospital, and they wheel me in. And Alex was probably like 15, 20 minutes behind, maybe
25, yeah.
25 or 30. Okay. Um, we get upstairs and they roll the ambulance bed right in front of the bed where he's gonna be, and they tell me, you don't even get up. You stay right there. You put the baby up like this, pass it over to us, and you don't move. So I said, okay. I hold Liam up, pass him over to the doctors, and they take him to the bed. And as soon as they start stripping him and checking all this stuff, and I jump off the bed to go around to say hello and goodbye to Liam, because now he's screaming and crying. That's literally how he woke up, was me handing him over to a group of strangers. And this nurse comes and pulls me by my arm and says, no, 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 you cannot be here. Let the doctors work. You need to go to the waiting room. And she starts explaining all the hospital rules. And the thing she keeps saying over and over again is, there's only 2 visiting hours. There's only 2 visiting hours. You can only come from 12 to 1 and from 5 to 6. There's only 2 visiting hours. Do you understand the rules? Do you understand what I'm telling you? Because she didn't have the English rules. She has them in Greek. So she's like explaining to me in broken English what the rules are, telling me that I cannot. And I said, I just want to say bye to my baby. And she's like, no, 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 you need to let the, and like they would not let me near him again or touch him. She literally escorts me out, makes me sit in the waiting area that's just a few feet outside their double doors, but they're locked. I can't go back in there. And I'm just like, okay, great. So I'm just supposed to sit here now and hope that, like somebody comes and gives me an update, because up to this point, their communication had been so bad that I was like, I don't even know if they're going to fucking come give me an update. But I sat there.
Yeah, no, so when I left Giselle, she was propped up. She was sitting on the stretcher, about to go into the ambulance. Liam was facing out, and I was able to give Liam a kiss on his forehead, and I told him, "See you soon, buddy. I'll see you soon." And I gave Giselle a kiss. I ran home. I think the hardest thing of all of it was that Caden just started breaking down because he was like, "I killed my brother. I killed my brother." I'm like, you saved his life. You saved his life, because if we wouldn't have been able to catch this, he would have passed away anyways. Like, so getting the kids in a place to be able to get them in the car, we cleaned up as best as we could the Airbnb, we packed everything up. Initially, I was going to go to the airport because we had a shuttle that was going to take us, but we were not going to get there until like 12 midday. So I get to the airport, I drop them off, and I'm going to drop the car off and then come back to just get in the shuttle. And in my head, I'm like, I can't wait this long. There's no way I'm going to wait this long. It's just not going to happen. So I'm able to extend the car for another 10 days. I'm like, just give me 10 days. If I need it more, I'll let you know. If I need it less, I'll let you know too. I drive back to the airport. It was like a 5-minute drive. The kids, I get everything back in the car, reload the car. We get stuffed in, and I'm speeding as fast as I can to get to Nicosia. And every time Giselle would text me or call me, the boys would lose it because they're like thinking it's bad news, like something's going on. I'm listening to it, and things of that nature. So she says, "Hey, I'll call it. We'll just talk when we get there. I'll give you an update when you get here." So I get to the hospital, I park the car, Leah stays with the kids, and I just, I run upstairs. And that's when she told me, like, hey, they sedated him. I'm like, what do you mean they sedated him?
And yeah, so I'm in the waiting room. The nurse comes out with this blue folder with some paper, and she's like, you need to go register him. And I was like, where? She's like, in the first floor. Just look for the registration office. And I'm like, right now? She's like, yes, yes, this will help. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, you guys haven't even given me an update on what's going on with my baby, but you want me to go roam the hospital and go register him when I don't even know what's going on right now. And I had told her multiple times, I said, hey, like, my baby doesn't pee in his diaper. Like, he had a diaper on because it was nighttime, but typically he would hold his pee most nights and during the day until somebody sits him on a toilet or a potty for him to potty. Like, he just didn't just go in his diaper. And then the second thing is he was fully breastfed. So they're not telling me what they're doing. So I'm here like, what is he eating? How's he going to eat? Am I allowed to go back there and breastfeed? Can I who's gonna potty him? Like, do you guys understand that he will just hold his urine until he has to pee? And I'm trying to explain this to all to her, and she's just brushing me off. She's like, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm like, I'm not understanding what you're trying to tell me. Like, I'm telling you he needs to breastfeed. So what I need you to tell me is, am I allowed to go every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes, every 45? Like, I need it. And she's like, we will talk. We will talk. And like, she just won't give me a fucking answer. And I'm starting to get a little agitated, but I'm trying to remain calm because I'm in a different country, in a different place. And I'm just like, don't like come here and be crazy. But I'm like, I need you to give me an answer other than it'll be fine. It's okay. Like, we will figure it out. I'm like, we will figure it out. I am the one with the boobs. How are you going to figure this out? And, one of my biggest things was like, I don't want him to have formula. So, like, if he needs to drink a bottle, then give me a breast pump. I will pump. I will get him his milk. So I sat there for about 10 or 15 minutes and I heard Liam crying and crying and crying. And all of a sudden I hear him stop crying after like 2 minutes. And I was very confused because I was like, what could possibly have made Liam stop crying? Like, there are very few things that makes Liam stop crying in a room full of strangers. But I was like, I don't know. They must have some tricks. I mean, it is the PICU after all. Like, they must know how to keep babies quiet somehow. I don't think much of it. After sitting there for another 10, 15 minutes, I decided, you know what? Nobody's coming out. Nobody's talking to me. I might as well go downstairs and try to find this office. And I go downstairs, and the name that she had originally given me was the wrong name. So I go to this office. I try to ask the woman about it. The woman gets pissed off at me because I don't speak Greek, literally gets annoyed and just walks away from me and like won't help me. Like, she literally just turns around and walks away from me. And I was like, okay, great. So I go back upstairs because now I'm frustrated. I'm like, you want me to go do this in a language that I don't speak, and then your hospital staff isn't being helpful either. So what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to figure this out? And after sitting there for another 5 minutes, I was like, you know what? I will go back down again and I will try to figure this out. So I go back downstairs and I finally find the right office and I'm able to register him and I head back upstairs. And when I sit down, about 2 minutes later, one of the doctors comes out with the nurse, or two doctors, I don't know. And the first, I think it was a nurse and a doctor, yeah. So the nurse is a male, an older male, and he seems very agitated and like upset. And he starts asking me like, what's wrong with your kid? Like, what's going on with him? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, what are you? And he's like, he's never had any tests, no doctors, no appointments. Like, he starts drilling me with all these questions. And I'm like, no, no, no. And he's like, do you understand how severe this is? And I'm like, I don't even know what we're talking about right now. And I'm just so confused. And I think he's getting even more annoyed with me because I'm still very calm. And I'm just like, no, no, like, what? I don't, because no one has given me information. Then finally he seems like he's like, oh, like he's not gonna get anywhere with me. So he turns around and he leaves. And then the doctor starts talking to me, and she's like, you know, the heart is supposed to have four chambers. Your son only has three. So she's like, what's happening is in that third chamber, his oxygenated and not oxygenated blood is all getting mixed. And she's like, and that's what's leading to his low oxygen levels. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, we're still doing more tests, more scans. We don't know the severity of his condition, but that's what we've been able to find out till this point. And she's like, and we sedated him to be able to do this. They never asked me. They never informed me. They never asked me to sign anything. I hadn't, they don't have my signature till this day in that hospital. I never signed anything. They just sedated him. And when she said that, I felt like a gut punch, but I'm just like, what am I going to do at this point? Like, it's done. Like, they already did it. So I was just like, okay. So she leaves after that, and I don't see her for a few hours probably.
Yeah. I mean, so I get there and asking a bunch of questions. Obviously, I wasn't there for a lot of the things. So she's re-explaining. She's saying that, she, as doctors, you're never. What I think, this is my own thought, is like obviously you're gonna tell the truth, but you're gonna have some optimism behind it. If, you know, she told me that he had a strong heart, so I'm sitting here, I'm taking some information and relaying it back to the kids because they're asking and grilling me, especially Grace and Caden. okay, man, he's got some stuff going on in his heart, but they say he's got a strong heart. He's got a good chance to be able to well, we're going to get surgery and see how it goes.
But we didn't know at this point that he needed surgery
Yeah.
either.
So she was basically doing tests, and
Yeah.
she said the same thing to me, and that his organs were on.
We didn't find this all out till later. So the initial, they only talked about him not having the right heart chambers. That was the initial.
But when I came and talked to you and said, okay, he's sedated. What do you mean? You explained all that to me. So when I asked her, I was like, okay, so the organs flip flopped in the body. That's not fatal in itself. And she was like, no, it's not fatal. If they're all connected and they're all working
They
properly.
didn't tell me about that till later. Like,
Oh, well,
that's what I'm saying.
she told me when I had the first conversation with her.
Okay.
So then, like we're talking back and forth about the heart. She's asking me about insurance. I told her I was in the military. I have insurance. I can give the number to it. So they wanted us to see that we had insurance.
So yeah, I would say probably about after 2 hours, they realized that they're not going to be able to help him either at this hospital. So they're like, you guys are going to have to get transferred to a different hospital. And the idea proposed was to Tel Aviv in Israel, to the children's hospital there to be able to do open heart surgery on him. And the first thing they come back with is, where's your, like, show us your insurance. And we're not traveling with cars. We can't figure it out, but we're like, we have insurance. And I remember this guy who was not a doctor or nurse. He's like the manager there.
Ran the clinic.
Yeah. He's like the one, he says, until you don't show me insurance, we are not booking your medevac. He said that blatantly. He said, until you don't show me insurance, we are not booking you guys to get to Tel Aviv. And I said, I'm telling you we have it, and I'm telling you it will be covered. And he says, I don't care, get on the phone with them. Well, because of the time difference, it was our operators weren't going to open for another 4 hours. So I tell him that, I said, it's going to be 4 hours till I'm able to talk to an insurance agent where we have our health insurance. And he's like, that's fine, we'll wait. That's literally what he was like, that's fine, we'll wait. So I'm sitting here even more confused now because I'm like, okay, you guys are telling me that my son has a very critical condition, that this is like, very time dependent, but we can wait 4 hours for insurance to call to confirm that we can get a medevac to go to another country. I'm like, this is great. And this is the part where in the medical system, I just like the logic supersedes humanity. The logic supersedes what it means to have a loved one, to like, do you even understand what it is to be in the situation? And I'm supposed to just say, okay, and wait. So we did. So we waited until the insurance gets on the phone just to tell them what we've been telling them for 4 hours. And then he's like, okay, great. We will now proceed with it. Well, by then it's too late. So they can't come tonight. And they're like, they're going to come the next day. And we're like, okay, well, there's nothing else we can do. And they're like, no, it's fine. He's sedated. He's stable. Like, we will wait. He will fly out tomorrow.
No, and that was a big thing the doctor told me when I talked to her. She's like, he has a strong heart. He's stabled out fast. Like we were able to get him stable fast. And stable for him, I remember seeing the oxygen level as we talked about above 90, he was at 70. So they had his oxygen level at 70. And so they were just talking about some positives. Anyways, Jasil and I had brought a bag. So I had taken the kids. She stayed at the hospital. I had taken the kids to the Airbnb with Aaliyah and got them settled in real quick. Packed an overnight bag for Jasil because I had thought that she would stay over. I won't.
Well, I told him, I said, I'm probably going to spend the night at the hospital. Please go pack me a bag and bring it to me. So he goes home, he does that, brings me the bag.
And that's around like 4 or 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Right before
the next visitation hour.
Next visitation hours for Liam. So I bring her the bag and we're able to, go see Liam. And seeing him on the table and he's not there, he's like, he has all these tubes and wires hooked up to him and he's so alone.
Yeah, he's on this huge bed by himself. They said that we couldn't take pictures, and the kids were not allowed, only mom and dad, and we only have an hour. He's intubated, he has all these machines attached to him. And I told Alex at one point, I said, it doesn't seem like he's even there. I said it, I said, I know my baby, and I said, he's not here. I said, he's not here.
The doctor said that he was in a deep, deep sleep, and it's still good to be able to talk to him and touch him because just our bodies know each other. So we talked, we listened, we played a Joe Dispenza like uh, little track and spent time with him for an hour. And I think that's the hardest thing of all of this. And I might be jumping the gun here, but like we've said, he wasn't going to live. We know it. We've accepted it. We understand it. But none of us got to say goodbye. And I think that's the hardest thing of this whole process is that he got taken away from his mom, who kept him alive for 18 months. And the last conscious thought was him screaming and crying with all these random people. And that's where, for me, it tears me apart because I didn't get to say goodbye. And the kids, especially Grayson, he's torn up because he didn't get to say goodbye. So I, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just so sad that I didn't get to say goodbye. But at the same time, like a lot of the work that we've been doing these last 4 months is like it happened the way that it was supposed to happen in the place that it happened. And there's a reason for it all. And I'm not spiritual bypassing in this. I'm just like, I'm really leaning into this is how it was supposed to be. Now, what's the gift in it all? What's the beauty in it all? And so saying, talking to him and saying, hey, bud, I'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. Just so I'll let you just talk about what you decided.
Well, yeah, after that hour, we come back to the waiting room, and that nurse who was besides himself with me earlier comes out, and we asked, like, can we spend the night here, because it's just a waiting room with two couches and some lockers. And he said, yeah, you can wait here if you want. I don't see what's the point. You're not doing anything here. Just, like, he was so like blasé about it, like, if you want to fucking waste your time, go ahead, kind of thing to us. He's like, but you're not leaving till tomorrow till noon, so you're basically just going to be sitting around here. And I was like, thanks for the information, dude. Like, goodbye. I don't like, yeah. Once again, I don't understand why anybody in that line of work would do it if you want to act and treat people this way and you want to talk to people this way. Like, that man knew nothing about me, but I'm pretty sure he made so many judgments about me because of how my son went to him, and how, the information that he got from me is that clearly I was a careless mother who didn't give a shit about her child, right? Because the way he talked to me, the way he treated me was just like, this woman is an idiot and clearly doesn't care about her child. But anyway, after he said that, I was just like, you know what? I don't think I want to stay here. Like, they're not going to let me in to see him. And I still had to pack for me and Liam to leave to Israel the next day. All the kids hadn't seen me all day. And I was like, you know what? It would be really nice for the kids, for me to go home for the kids and for me to be there for them. And I'll pack my stuff. And that way tomorrow, like, we all get a good night's rest. And tomorrow, you know, we're on this new journey now with Liam. And well, it was just going to be me and Liam, and everybody else still had to get flights and all of that. So we sat there probably for like 30, 45 minutes talking and debating whether I should stay, go. And then that was the decision. We arrived and we said, okay, let's go. And I hadn't eaten all day since, 4:30 in the morning or something. So I said, you know what? Let's just stop at a restaurant. Let's eat. Let's get some food in our stomachs, and then let's go home, to the kids. So that's what we did. We went to a restaurant close by. We had a meal, um, and then we headed home. And I started packing. I packed a suitcase for me and Liam, and we try to go to sleep as early as possible. I had to make some phone calls, update my family. Uh, but yeah, we went to bed. I wouldn't say we went to sleep, but we went to bed. And yeah, I don't know if you want to.
I mean, you can just continue because
Yeah,
what happened
and then
that early that morning.
yeah, I couldn't sleep, so around 1:30, 2 a.m., something like that, I pull out my phone and I throw on my headphones, and I have this Joe Dispenza audible that is like a meditation audible that he has. Um, and I put on my headphones and I start listening to it. And I was sitting up in my bed listening to this, and I had my eye masks to it's like a blackout, eye mask. So there was like no light or anything. Like I'm in absolute darkness. And I just start seeing these blue and green lights like dancing in my eyes. It's like this whole, yeah, it was like insane visual of like blue and green light, and I'm seeing these shapes and different things coming, and like sometimes it looks like animals and different things, but it's just like this dance of this blue and green lights happening. And as I'm doing the meditation, I like ask, like, is this you, Liam? And I get like a confirmation that yeah, like this is him. And I said, hey buddy, like whatever you do, just please don't leave. I'm like, just please don't leave without. I was like, just wait for me to see you one more time. And right at 2:21, my phone rings, and the audible stops because it was through my phone. And it's my younger sister who I hadn't really been talking to. And she says, hey, I know it's late. I'm just calling to see like how's everything going. And it kind of just kept it short with her. I was like, hey, like I was just listening to a meditation and blah, blah, blah. And at the time, I didn't notice the timestamp. I was just like, okay, thanks. Like, uh, I think we talked for like a minute or three. It really wasn't long. And I hang up on her. Like I was like, there's really not much to update. Like we're just waiting to get to the hospital. He's sedated in the hospital here, and we're waiting for our flights tomorrow. They're supposed to leave by noon. Yeah, and I try to go back to the meditation, and I can't go back to the visual. Like it didn't happen. And it I went back to like just darkness, just black. I couldn't see anything anymore. And as hard as I tried to go back to that place, I just couldn't. And I end up falling asleep. We wake up in the morning and we make breakfast. I remember that at first we were trying to rush out and leave early, and then I said no, let's just take our time, make breakfast, eat with the kids a meal before we leave. So we did that. We ate a meal with them. And then Alex and I headed to the hospital. And we get over there, and every single parking lot is full. We literally were driving around for 20 minutes just trying to find parking. And every single parking lot is full. And we get to one where cars are literally just parked wherever. Like they're just parking down the road, they're parking behind other cars, they're parking wherever they could. So I said, look, let's not do that because we're in a rental car and we already had seen some car like all scraped up. And I said, let's not do that because it's not our car. I said, if it was my car, I'd leave it anywhere. But it says not our car. I said, let's just go drop me off the front and try to see if you'll find a parking spot. So he drops me off in the front of the hospital. I woke up with my suitcase. They had asked me the night before for me to fill out my visa paperwork for me and Liam to get into Israel. The website would not work. Like I tried it a million times. The website just would not function. Like it wouldn't open, it wouldn't work. And I was like, I don't have the mental capacity to do this tonight. Like I will do it tomorrow in the hospital. Because I was like, we're gonna get there early. I'll have time to do it before the flight. So I get to the waiting room and I park the suitcase under the TV, and I sit down and I pull out my laptop and I open it and I turn it on and I get to the visa website for Israel, and I see a nurse. I'm sitting in the couch where I could see the doors to the PICU, and I see a nurse look through the window and like turn around and then like catch that she saw me come back She opens the door and she's like, "Your son is in cardiac arrest. You should come right now." She didn't seem rushed. She didn't seem like, and I walk over and Liam's just laying there. Like, and there's a few doctors around him and nurses, and Liam's just laying there absolutely still. And I knew, like, the moment I saw him, he was already dead.
I was I was parking the car. I was looking for parking still, and Giselle calls me. And she says just what the doctor told her, Liam's in cardiac arrest. And I remember just leaving the car in the middle of the street. In the middle of the street, I put the brake on. It's a manual. I put the e-brake on and I turn it off and I just start sprinting. And I'm screaming, like, get out of my way, my son's dying. And I'm having a hard time breathing. And I sprint from the parking lot and I have to take the stairs because the elevator's not working up to the second or third floor, second floor. And I run in and I just see this man pumping his chest and just screaming, crying in the hallway. And all the machines are beeping. Like something you see on a movie. And so they do it for like 10 minutes and it looks like it's working because they're after I thought it was working, but I realized that they were doing all of the making his pulse and stuff on the I was looking at the monitor and I'm like, oh, it's not a zero, it's a 60, like but it was them just doing it. It wasn't his heart on its own. So after 10 minutes, the lady says, she says, I can't tell them to stop. You have to. It's it's law that you have to tell them to stop. And she takes this ultrasound thing to his heart and says, look, it's not pumping. And you can see it's not. And she said, do you want us to stop? I lost my mom in 2014. I totally took that whole death a different way. I never thought that I would have to do it for my young son. So, like, seeing my son there, I didn't want to.
I mean, honestly, when I first saw him, I was like, you just go into this shock that I'm expecting him to breathe at any moment. I'm expecting him to open his eyes at any moment. Like, I'm waiting for him to move on his own. But honestly, like, I don't think he died right in that moment. Honestly, I think he died while we were away and they just like put on that show for us to make it seem like it had just happened. But when I rounded that corner, like, it wasn't something that had just happened. It was clear to me that everybody else in the room knew that he had passed away because they weren't, when I rounded the room, they weren't even doing CPR. They were all just standing around, and the man actually came after the fact and started doing CPR on him. So it was clear to me that that was more a show for us parents. Um, you know, maybe they thought it would make us feel better. I don't know. But you know, I I've had a lot of time to think about it and go over everything and the scenarios and what if and this, and at the end of the day, it's like obviously we wouldn't change anything because he was able to pass away without pain. without anyone of us feeling guilty, like in the sense of like he could have died in one of the kids' arms, he could have died in our bed, he could have died in our house, he could have died on an airplane, he could have died, us traveling somewhere. Like none of that was the case. And what they explained to us, like his circulatory system never fully developed. So he would have never lived a normal life. It just was impossible. This wasn't just his heart, it was his entire circulatory system. His stomach was on the reverse side, his spleen was on the reverse side, his liver was in the middle. His circulatory system was missing parts that just were never there. Like this child was not meant to live a long life. And even, some people are like, what about a heart transplant? It doesn't matter because it wasn't just the heart. Like it was so many other things.
The cardiologist told us after he passed that the as he was passing, she received a message from the doctor, the cardiologist over in Tel Aviv. And she had said, looking at all of the information that you gave me, I wasn't going to be able to do anything for
Yeah.
him. Like she would have still done the procedure.
So the first procedure they were going to do was just to put a shunt to try to see if his own system would kickstart and try to like grow all these things, to try to pump blood more efficiently throughout his body.
Regrow his circulatory system.
But other than that, they're like, this is just one of many, many, many surgeries and medication. Like he will have to be on medication for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just, yeah. I, you know, Obviously as a mom, I'm like, I wish we would have gotten on the airplane. I wish we would have arrived to Tel Aviv. I wish we would have been able to go through the first surgeries, this and that, and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, I know a mom who had a very similar situation with her son, and her son lived 22 years. He lived 22 years in a wheelchair with a feeding tube in his stomach, never talked, never walked, constant suffering, constant medications. And me and her spent a weekend together, and she's like, look, your son's life was perfect. Like he got to be normal, he got to enjoy you guys. He never had to go through the suffering that my son had to go through for 22 years. And she's like, I know it's hard, like it doesn't make it any easier, but she's like, at the end of the day, like he lived a beautiful life. And that's what we have to like keep coming back to, because we know, like, had I done a sonogram, had I done a scan, had I even had a doctor's visit when he was young, like this wouldn't be his story right now.
Had his memories.
Yeah, like he would have right away been living in a hospital for the rest of his life, and most likely not even survived his first surgery. So he got to live a beautiful life. And, despite the things that happened at the hospital, I'm forever thankful for all the staff. Like at the end of the day, they were doing their jobs, they were caring, they were trying to, help our son in the situation. And it doesn't take the pain away. Like that, I don't think that there's anything that takes the pain away of being in a situation like this.
It was after he passed away, I held him and just his full body weight. Like I've held him before, but his dead weight, it like shattered me. But I told Jasil, like, I think we need to get the kids because they wanted to see him. Like,
Yeah, so the kids were still back at the Airbnb. They had no idea any of this had happened. So after like 30, 45 minutes, Alex and I are like, oh shit, what about the kids? Because they were already asking, like, hey, can we take Liam like down to the morgue? And I'm like, hold on. Like, wait a minute.
in a bag and
Yeah. And I was like, we have kids and you need to give us a moment. So I talked to Alex, and Alex was like, just hold them off. I'm gonna go back and get the kids.
they the car ride it was so long. I know it wasn't, but it felt so long because I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to tell them that he died. I pull up and all of them are wearing black.
And we didn't tell them anything. Like everybody woke up that day and everybody put on black from head to toe. Black shirts, black pants. The girls, the boys, Aaliyah, everybody was wearing black. We didn't even say anything.
I step out of the car and try to say something, and I just start crying. And all I get back in return is the kid screams. All of them, even Minabelle. Like, just bloody screams. And just break down in my arms off the side of the street. And I said, don't stop crying. Like, you can keep crying, but we gotta go in the car. We have to get back to the hospital as soon as possible. So the whole car ride back, they're all screaming. Like, it's just it's so visceral. Like, the whole car ride. And then Linabelle, she's crying, but she's also mad because everybody's screaming and she's not understanding.
Yeah, I would say it probably took Lynn about 3 weeks to actually understand that Liam passed away.
And I pull up and we go inside and they're scared. They're like, I've never seen a dead body. And I'm like, it's your little baby brother. Like, it's okay. You don't have to touch him right away. You have to hold him right away if you don't want to. But ultimately, they all end up taking turns holding him and just saying their goodbyes. And then we put him on the table, the bed, excuse me. And they all surround him and they're just kissing his feet. And Linabelle's trying to open his eyes. Um, it's no one ever teaches you how to tell your kids to say goodbye to their baby brother for the last time. Like, that's one thing that's has stuck with me this whole time is just how resilient the kids have handled it all and how they're sad. There's times they're sad, but they're really leaning into the memories that they get to spend with him and they got to spend with him. I think out of all of this, as I remember everybody left the room and I stayed behind with the guy that was doing CPR and I was looking at Liam and I said, I promise you that I'm gonna do something with this. I'm going to do something with this because at the end of the day, like Liam in my life taught me how to be there and taught me how to be present with all of the kids and fully enjoy fatherhood and to travel and to experience it in my whole life. I haven't had that. We had a love on a different level. And that's what I'm leaning into now is like giving that love that he gave me and he gave our kids and he gave Jasil to share that and spread it with the world because that's what we need.
And for me, it's just, I was honestly like so present throughout his entire life. And I can't say I was the same mother for my other kids. Like the first one was like such a huge shock of trying to figure out who you are and now how different your life is and then adjusting to two and three and like with Liam I was just at this point of motherhood where I was just like, oh, this is where I'm at and I'm okay with it, like I'm here, I'm accepting of all his needs and what he needs from me. And I'm not saying there wasn't days where I'm like, look, I'm exhausted, please take him for like an hour or this or that, but it was from a different place where like I feel like early on in my motherhood journey it was almost like trying to run away from the role of like having to do it, where now I loved being there, I loved being that person for him, I truly cherished it, and I'm glad I did. I have no regrets with how I was there for him, how I didn't let other things take priority in my life. Like when I have a baby, they are my priority. My life is about that. And yes, I matter too, and I find ways to fill my cup. But for me, it's just such a short period. It's so short that it's just not worth, worrying about all these other things that we usually worry about. And I'm just so glad that I was at that point with Liam, that I truly gave him all of myself to him. And that I didn't try to push or question like wherever he was at in his journey. I just met him there. I just met him there, wherever it was. The doctors asked me, was he fussy? Was he crying all the time? And I'm just like, no, no, like I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like he was such a content baby, but it was because all his needs were constantly being met. And not just by me, but by his entire family. His needs were constantly being met. He was truly a joyful kid. He was not suffering. He was not crying constantly. Like he was a joyful kid. And there's so many lessons in this and so many things that we haven't even touched on that, we've been unraveling and discovering throughout this journey. But the biggest thing for me is, we see death as the end. And the thing is like death and life are one of the same doors. You know, on one side is ending, on the other side is beginning. Nothing is ever truly dead. It just transforms. And that's what Liam has been for us. It's just he's a light, he's a transformation. He's showing us so many things that we didn't even know existed. And it's still a journey, it's still hard. Like physically, my human self misses him, loves him, wants him back. And I also know like, there's so much more to life than just this human flesh.
It was the gateway for me to dive more spiritually, like into myself spiritually, even just believing. Talks to me every day in different ways. And it's been so beautiful to be able to see that. I've mentioned many times that I got some mediums to talk to. That's what he was supposed to be for me, was to open me up, to to have me not hold back anymore. That's one of the biggest reasons why we're doing what we do, what we're doing now, taking steps in our podcast, and for me speaking and helping other men and doing things like that. It's because of Liam. It's a passion of mine, but the fire, time is precious, and most importantly, like in this process, being there for the kids and for each other. Like we were told that Liam was he brought here to glue the family. And if you look back at the very beginning of this podcast, when we talked about his conception, his whole life cycle, it was a big transitionary period for us. These last 3 years have been transitionary period, going from this military lifestyle into living a nomadic lifestyle and living what feels right to us, feeling in alignment and doing the things that fill us up and surrounding ourselves with people that do that as well. It's been challenging and it's had its cons, but I can tell you that all of the gifts and the journey, it's been so beautiful and it's been revealing. And that's what we're leaning into. I mean, I don't I could sit here and go on and on about his story.
Yeah, the logistics aspects, it was just we got with a funeral home there in Cyprus. We quickly figured out that they don't do any cremation because of the religions that side of the world, and there's almost no countries nearby who do either, and that would be very difficult to find. So we quickly arrived to the conclusion that we would ship his body to Dominican Republic, which is the last place where we lived, where it's also where Liam was born. And we had a community rally behind us to help us with the costs of all of this, thankfully. And we were able to get him here and cremated here, and we had his service here and everything. And we flew back 4 days after he passed away, and we've been here ever since. And
One of the hardest things is like not realizing how quick the paperwork process. Like they had
has to happen.
you,
Yeah.
they kept hitting me with so much, like an hour or 2 hours after the process, and
Like 2 hours after he passed away, it's like, okay, come in here. Here's the paperwork. Like, you got to do this. You got to do
yeah,
that. And you're just like, okay, I got to fucking
do
sober up right
you
now. And
want an
like,
autopsy? Do you not? Do
yeah.
you like
And like,
don't cremate? So what are you gonna do? And to be
and all of
honest,
a sudden you have to like shove it aside and start making decisions. And it's
yeah.
like, okay,
And like how it all came together, and I've said this many times, is like to be very transparent. I didn't have the financial means at that moment to handle all of like getting back and just how it all played out, like put into place of where we didn't pay for anything. You know, my sister started this GoFundMe and everybody poured into it and
it was,
raised a
it was, it
significant
was
amount of
through a
money.
community. Yeah.
If Liam would have gone to Tel Aviv, I don't know if me and the kids would have been able to go.
And that's what, like we say, like, let's say Liam would have gone to Tel Aviv. Who knows how long Alex would have been in Cyprus with all the kids, and then what would have happened on the other side, and then nobody would have been able to be there and say goodbye. And all. So at the end of the day, this is why we're like, you know what? We're content. We're okay with the way everything happened because it happened exactly the way it was meant to. Like we were all able to be there together as a family. None of us were separated. We all got to say our final goodbyes.
The doctor said he passed perfectly. Like, if there's a way to die, he passed. He passed away perfectly. Though, in the sense of like it wasn't with any of the kids, it wasn't with us, it wasn't on an airplane. Like Priscilla mentioned, it was in a hospital, and
And although I truly do believe that the sedation is what accelerated his death because sedation stops the body from doing all the mechanisms that would to keep you alive, right? So like if you are awake and you have a cough, your body is doing that to compensate for something else that is trying to get out or is trying to deal with. But if I sedate you, your body can no longer cough,
yeah,
right? And that's essentially what happened to Liam is like while he was alive, his body could compensate for all his other things and kept him alive. The moment they sedated him, they put all his systems to sleep. All his mechanisms that kept him alive were put to rest. And that is why he didn't last 24 hours after sedation. Like he didn't even last 24 hours after sedation because it literally put his body to rest.
yeah. So we got back to DR. Everything was taken care of. We had a beautiful celebration of life on the beach that we went to all the time in Quinto Beach. We live 5 minutes away. Kids surf there all the time. It's so funny that we're doing this podcast. That just made me think about this today as I walked on the beach. Um, Grayson's friend comes up to me and he has a tattoo of Liam, his name on his shin. And he says, "Come look, there's Liam all over the beach." And they say they, I think it was Grayson, but they wrote his name all over like leaves and almonds and trees and stuff like that. That's him living on. That's his energy. That's so coming home, coming here where we were supported. We were looking for a home, what felt like home, looking for a support system, and it was here all along. But we went out on a beautiful journey, traveling the world, experiencing different things, and coming together as a family, doing challenging things. We've talked about it all in this podcast series, all the beautiful travels, and that was orchestrated by
Liam.
Liam.
Yeah. I mean, when we look back at his life, I see all the places we went to as little portals, little keys of things that his soul just had to experience. His soul just had to go and be in the frequency of for whatever reason. And I try to of him more often than not on the soul level, because it's really hard to think of him as an 18-month-old baby that passed away. But when you think of someone on a soul level, you think about all the lives they lived, all the years they have of wisdom and everything. It's like he orchestrated this for himself, for a part of himself that just needed to feel this love within a family unit, and needed to go to these specific places with specific frequencies for the bettering of himself. And I can't be mad or sad about that aspect of it. It's like it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be that focused and that clear. He came here with a purpose, he accomplished it, and he was done. And he's like, okay, thanks for the ride. I'm done. I'm out. And it's like I can't be mad at that. I My heart will always have a place for him.
I'm gonna leave this book with you because it's something that we've read, started reading as a family at bedtime, and it's helped me a lot. A book called Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson, and it talks about when people cross over, they're still with us. We're the universe, and being able to be hyper aware of the signs that they're giving us. And the signs may be different for every individual in the family, but being able to see those signs as a way that our loved ones communicate with us. And I can tell you that I've made this observation, and I've said this before. 222, the bed that he went to in the first hospital that we talked about was bed number 2. The bed he passed away in was bed number 2. And the different hospital, the house that we were living in at that time, it was house number 2.
And then when we got here, the apartment they put us into in Kostangbar was also apartment 2.
And there's other twos, like, correlation to 2 in our life, that it's just like, man, this is so interesting. It's not a coincidence, it's a synchronicity. And I see 2-2 all the time. I see 2-2-2, like I'm running into it in moments, and it's just a reminder.
And then that's when I realized, when I go back and looked at the timestamp, my sister called me at 221. And it's just, yeah.
That's when he departed. What Justin and I were talking about is possibly him leaving his body at that time.
Yeah.
Him crossing over. And he was saying goodbye to his mom. And I think at the end of the day, he loved his mom. He loved everybody. Just being able for him to say goodbye to his mom and spend the last little bit with his mom, for him breastfeeding one last time, makes it a little bit easier. Like I said, it's not gonna, doesn't mean I don't cry, it doesn't mean I don't have a hard time, but it's understanding that, feeling the whole spectrum of these emotions. They can give us wisdom, it can give us life to live a purposeful life. That's what we're trying to do, what we're doing as we move forward. So if you followed along through this whole thing, thank you for listening to this last episode. I know we cried a lot, and it's been a long time since we talked about it. For you, it's just another week. For us, it's been 3 months since we've had this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And hopefully you will tune into future episodes.
We love you guys.